Good evening and welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening, giving your time to us, and thank you for your interest in the Maryland Farmland Raptor Program. I'm Andy Brown. I'm the manager of the program with Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership, and Alex Pellegrini, who most of you know, is the coordinator, a program coordinator. We're going to talk a little bit this evening about about monitoring boxes. But before we jump into that, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of history background on how this all came about. Some of you may have heard this before, but I spent my career in natural resources with Calvert County in Southern Maryland. I started working with the barn owls and a little bit with kestrels, but mostly focused mainly on barn owls in the early 1990s, late 80s, early 90s, along the Patuxent River Valley. With nest boxes and banding chicks and such. In the the state of Maryland produces about every 10 years a document that is required by Congress, required by the federal government for grant sourcing, called the Maryland State Wildlife Action Plan, or the SWAP. And in this action plan, they have to identify all the wildlife species in the state that are species of greatest conservation need. So there, everything from plants all the way up to black bears, essentially. So in 2005 was the first swap plan, and then it was redone and revised in 2015. As a result of that 2015 plan, the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and Maryland Ornithological Society came together and had the idea of let's start up a nonprofit organization that will be able to form partnerships between governmental agencies and non-governmental agencies, other groups, to advance conservation efforts of these bird species that are listed in this state wildlife action plan. So in 2016, Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership was founded. Yeah, and the purpose is, as I just said, connecting birds and habitats and people so that birds can flourish in Maryland, specifically those birds that are in greatest conservation need. After years of working along the Patuxent River Valley on the barn owls, I knew that there were folks working in Prince George's County as well as Anne Arundel, and I started doing some activities out of the county with burrowing owls, and mentor suggested that maybe we should start doing some work on the barn owls in the Patuxent River Valley, and a little bit more than what we're doing, and rather than just banding chicks. So I wrote up some conservation goals and pulled together a group of box managers along the Patuxent that who were working on boxes, and tried to form this collaborative for folks in those counties that I mentioned. That was in 2019, and the spring of 2019. And as a matter of fact, Chris Eberly, who was the current executive director of the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership, attended that meeting. And from there, he said, well, geez, this would be perfect for us to set up on a statewide basis and create a farmland Raptor Program initiative for MBCP. So that's how it all kind of got started. I retired from Calvert County in 2021, and that's when I moved to Central Maryland, Frederick County, and started focusing essentially my full time effort on the Maryland Farmland Raptor Program, and we have grown considerably since that time. So that's kind of how we came about and how we started. So I'll turn it over to Alex, and he'll explain a little bit more about it.
Alrighty. So, the Maryland Farmland Raptor Program focuses on four farmland raptor species of greatest conservation need, as identified in that state wildlife action plan that Andy talked about. And the four raptors that we're looking at are the short-eared owl, the northern harrier, the American kestrel, and the American barn owl. But we're just going to talk about the American barn owl and the American kestrel today, and it'll make sense as we work our way through this. But before we dive too deep, I just wanted to, establish the baseline here and talk a little bit about these two species and the current state of them in Maryland. So let's first start with these little guys, the American kestrel. Kestrels are a falcon. They primarily hunt things like grasshoppers, they'll hunt dragonflies, small mammals in these open habitats, right? So this farmland raptor term that you'll hear a lot, the name of the program is really this umbrella term for open habitat types such as pastureland, agricultural land with nice buffers and things like that. But the American kestrel utilizes this habitat, and they are, interestingly, the smallest raptor in North America, right? So a bird that you might be familiar with, you can see the mourning doves sitting on the line right next to the kestrels. I think this picture is just so great to illustrate how tiny they are. I mean, they seriously fit in the palm of your hand. But to understand the current state of kestrels in Maryland, we're going to turn to the Maryland Breeding Bird Atlas. And if you're not familiar with what the Breeding Bird Atlas is, it's essentially a citizen science effort statewide to document breeding and breeding behaviors in birds. The state is divided up into these blocks, and then the blocks that are colored in green are where breeding or breeding behaviors of birds have been documented. So, if we look at the first breeding bird atlas from 1983 to 1987, we can see that kestrels they're really blanketing the whole state, but especially that central Maryland region. And then if we flip to the second atlas, which was done 2002 to 2006, and I go back and forth, you can really see that green just disappear, uh, right, from 1980 end to 1987 all the way to 2002, just that span right there. And then go to the third, and the green disappears even more. So I'll do it one more time. We can go one, two, three, and we just watch that green wash away, especially in that central Maryland region. And in the last 40 years, we can see through this breeding bird atlas data set that kestrels have declined by 53%. This is absolutely alarming. Um, but before I get into, the nitty-gritty of what can we do, I want to talk about barn owls. And this is our second focal species for the day. This highly inconspicuous predator on our landscape. I mean, most people have never seen a barn owl in their life, let alone in Maryland. They're secretive and they're pretty darn sensitive to disturbance. I mean, Andy and I could talk about them for hours, but we'll save that for the field because we don't have time to get into it tonight. So we're just going to go straight to the breeding bird atlas maps again. And here's a look at that first breeding bird atlas, right? 1983 to 1987, much more sparse than American kestrel. But as I flip from one, two to three, we can just watch that green disappear. So here we go. One, two, and three. And I'll go back. One, two, and three. Barn owls have declined by 79% in the state in the last 40 years. And we know this through the breeding bird atlas data set. But what can we do about this, right? What actions can we take and how can we help? And for us to understand this question of how can we help and how are we at the Farmland Raptor program doing it, we have to understand something quite basic about kestrels and barn owls, and that is that they are cavity nesters. So what that means is they use these cavities of any type, traditionally these natural cavities, like these holes in trees, right? We can see a kestrel and a barn owl in the tree here. Some slightly less natural cavities, like it looks like in this picture down here on the bottom right, that a woodpecker made that hole in what looks like a telephone pole, and the kestrels are nesting in it. Some definitely not natural cavities that they'll utilize, like This is a metal post of some sort. Maybe he's supporting a road or something that kestrels are nesting in. The kestrels really love these little exhaust openings in these gigantic electrical poles um, that just have the perfect opening for them and they'll go right in. Barn owls, on the other hand, have some little bit more interesting examples, like this one right here. This is actually on Maryland's Lower Eastern Shore, and you can't tell from this photo, but these are some barn owl chicks on somebody's patio. So I always imagine, some homeowners, maybe it's their vacation home or something, and they come out one day on their patio and they look to their right, and there's these little terrifying almost faces screeching at them. And if you've never heard a barn owl before, you'll know that they sound like this banshee, like scream, like this really throaty, like. So it's quite the experience to encounter them in that way. Also, there's been accounts of them nesting in this construction equipment on Poplar Island. So you can see here they just climbed right into this. This is a marsh master and nested right in this little cavity-like space inside of it. And also just somebody's attic where the window was knocked out. You'll see this, we see this on the Eastern Shore. Lots of abandoned houses and things like that down there. So, they are cavity nesters, which means that one of the most effective conservation actions that we can take, given as the examples are providing evidence to here, there's a lack of these natural cavities in suitable habitat. So, barn owls would not be nesting on balconies or in marsh masters. Kestrels wouldn't be nesting in uh, metal structures and things like that if there were these nest sites, these natural cavities available for them within suitable habitat, which means that one of the most effective conservation actions that we can take is installing these artificial nest sites, these nest boxes. And by doing that, we can move the barn owls, we can move the kestrels out of these places like balconies and metal poles and attics and machinery and at the same time increase these nesting opportunities in suitable habitat. That's what it's all about. Um, and what that gives us is a network of nest boxes across the landscape. And within Nest Watch right now, which I'll talk about later, there are over 300 nest sites, kestrels and barn owls combined within that network. And to understand this network, I'll try to give a bit of an overview here. The Farmland Raptor program builds and maintains nest boxes while coordinating this statewide network that connects these independent efforts around the state, and it connects them into this shared framework. Then, this is where monitoring comes in, right? Because across that network, we facilitate and carry out standardized data collection to document occupancy and nesting success, while also conducting banding and these targeted field studies. So, all in all, right, the monitoring turns the nest box network into measurable conservation by ensuring that data are collected within this accessible framework, this standardized framework, making them comparable across sites and across time, enabling collaboration and this data-driven conservation, data-informed conservation. But we don't have to worry about the data integration. We don't have to worry about the Nestbox network necessarily because what we're just focusing on tonight is the monitoring component. And the monitoring component is huge. This is where the volunteers come in. And this piece of the program, the monitoring, right, it's arguably the most important part. It takes that Nestbox effort to the next level and allows us to gain this meaningful information from it. But of course, like I've been saying, this part, it would not be possible without volunteers. So listen to Smokey the Bear here. Seriously, only you can help farmland raptors. Um, and monitoring is first, it's the first piece of, well, sorry. Volunteers are really the most critical part of the Farmland Raptor program. Um, and the most, and it's important, right? That not only are you excited about volunteering, to monitor these nest boxes. And if you're not, I'm happy to talk your ear off about why I am excited about nest box monitoring and, see if that brings up your spirits. But it's important that you're excited. It's important that you're comfortable with what you're doing and how you're doing it. And most importantly, it's important that you feel supported. So, as a volunteer, the first part of that support system comes with the regional box manager. And the regional box manager is essentially an experienced volunteer who takes responsibility for this subset of nest boxes within the entirety of the network. And they serve as a point of contact for both the landowners, where those nest boxes are located, and the team of volunteers that's monitoring them. So, for example, uh, when you did the volunteer survey, you answered what county you would like to volunteer in, and then there were these strange polygons that were kind of underlaid under that county map. And each of you selected one or multiple of them. And each of those polygons pertain to a subset of boxes that a regional box manager coordinates. So you can think of the regional box manager sort of like a team lead, somebody who knows the process and is there to support you and help you do it well. And of course, then there's Andy and I, the program coordinator and the manager, and we're here to support both the regional box manager and you, volunteers, throughout the entire process. Um, but during monitoring season, the regional box manager definitely will be your main point of contact. You guys will be a team handling these boxes. So the support's there. Hopefully you understand it, right? But to do what? What to do monitoring, but what does monitoring exactly entail? So monitoring begins in late April for both American kestrels and barn owls. And don't worry, do not take a picture of this. You can, but you do not have to. You don't have to write it down. Information, such as a different version of this, will be distributed and accessible through a shared Google Drive folder, um, volunteer resources folder. But this is my PowerPoint slide version of that monitoring schedule to give you guys an idea of what exactly to expect. So, monitoring for kestrel starts a little bit before barn owls, but generally both we can categorize them. They start about a month from now, in the end of April. And every 2 weeks, you will check the kestrel box until the eggs hatch. And it's a bit different for barn owls. For barn owls, you'll only check about once a month until those eggs hatch. And this is because, like I said, barn owls are more sensitive to disturbance and things like that. So we check those boxes less frequently. And what these checks are going to culminate to and lead to is a banding effort. So it's very important that we get photos of the chicks inside the boxes once they hatch. And then once they hatch, and as long as we can age them from that photo, nobody will have to return to that box until they are banded. So take a picture of them. Andy and I, or your team lead, that regional box manager, will help age those chicks, and then we will schedule a banding date. And of course, we welcome and make sure that all the volunteers get to come out and help us do some chick banding.
So, Alex, I just want to just want to reiterate what you just said,
Sure.
and this is relatively important. Once we have an accurate age of the chicks in both barn owls and kestrels, that box does not need to be monitored again
No.
until the banding date. Okay, there's that's important because we want to reduce the amount of human disturbance to that nest site. So you start out monitoring a kestrel box every 2 weeks, right? Once you get a photograph of the chicks, then you're done. Okay, until it's time to band. And as Alex said, we will let everybody know when the banding events occur. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for doing that. Very important to get those photos. Very important to understand the monitoring schedules here. But it's also important to understand, how are you taking these pictures? I'm sure you can imagine that these nest boxes are not at eye level. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're not going to ask you to climb ladders. We're going to The way that we prefer to advise monitoring um, is through using these camera systems here. And it's essentially just a paint roller attached to a painter's pole or a pool cleaning pole, something extendable, with these body cameras on top that cost about $30 or so. The whole setup, you can make it for under $50 if you do it the right way. And I know that a bunch of you guys who are in this webinar indicated that you'd be comfortable purchasing your own equipment, which is wonderful. We are working to acquire more and more funding to distribute this equipment, but we do have a limited amount right now. So it looks like we're covered for this season. But this is what it looks like in hand. So that body camera is attached to the paint roller there, and then that paint roller is attached to a pole, which you cannot see, but in action it looks a little bit like this. And this is a volunteer monitoring a barn owl box with an extendable pole, and that paint roller and the camera are inside of that box. Now, I'm not going to get too into detail about how to do this. All of this information, quick how-to video put together by Margaret Pothig, thank God for her. She's put together this, including so many different resources on our Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership YouTube channel. And in that channel, you can navigate to the playlist section here and find the Maryland Farmland Raptor Program volunteer resources, volunteer playlist. And it has instructions on how to build boxes, how to install them, but most importantly, it has instructions on how to use these little body camera devices attached to a pole, how to take pictures, and work out that whole system. So I will not go into depth there. The video does a great job of explaining it very, very quickly, and it's very simple once you get the hang of it. Play around with the camera just a little bit. But these cameras, they connect to your smartphone, and you can see here, this volunteer has an extendable pole with that camera on the top, and she is looking at her smartphone, if you can tell. And on that smartphone, hopefully when you stick it in the box, it looks a little bit like this. So Kestrel with some eggs and a little chick there that just hatched. And then what you can do from there is upload it to Nest Watch, which I will.
Alex, can I interject real quick here?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is a fantastic photo. It tells us exactly when these birds have hatched. So we can now predict when they will fledge.
Yeah.
Okay. And that'll give us a very good window for banding purposes. So after this photo, there's no need to check the box again.
Yeah. And that, I mean, it's perfect that you interjected right there because before we go into Nest Watch and kind of the data collection efforts and how we keep all this organized, I wanted to let Andy talk about a different type of monitoring that we have to do where we cannot use these extendable poles, and he'll explain.
Yeah. So unused silos are extremely attractive to barn owls. They seek them, tend to seek them out in their travels around the landscape and while they're hunting, and they just kind of, I think they just check them on a routine basis, just pop in and see what's inside, see what's going on. And so we have found that placing a nest box inside of an unused silo is very attractive and gets used by barn owls pretty readily. Even silos that we haven't seen any evidence of owls having been in them, no droppings, no pellets or whatever. We put a box up and sure enough they find it and use it pretty quickly. So unfortunately, we're talking about a nest box that's probably close to 20-25 feet up in the top of this silo, close to the top of the silo, and that's much further than what any extended pole can do for us. So as a result, in order to monitor these, we have to climb the silo. So I'm going to go through a little bit of the anatomy of the silo and see and kind of describe to you how that is done. You have the main chamber where the silage is kept, and it's loaded through a pipe that goes up to the roof and dumps the silage in from the top of the silo. This chute that you see on the side, this external chute, is a discharge or an unloading chute, and it's usually surrounded either by concrete or tin. And inside of that chute are these discharge doors, these unloading doors that open up, and the silage then gets shoveled out into the chute to a wagon or a truck or something at the ground that hauls it away and takes it to the feedlot. So what we do is we climb up this discharge chute. Okay, the picture on your left there is the shot of from looking from the ground up through that chute. It's about a 4 foot diameter, and we climb the framework of these discharge doors. There are usually hinges there, and in between the discharge doors are thick pieces of concrete that are part of the main chamber of the silo, and really are quite stable. So it's kind of like climbing a ladder, but it's a little bit different because you're somewhat protected on your back as well. So when we get up to the top there to install a nest box, oftentimes we can lean back against the back of the chute, and then that frees up both of your hands to do extra work. So the nest boxes are hoisted up or built inside the silo and hoisted up and attached to these cross pieces between the door frames, essentially the door frames of the unloading chutes. So that's the center photo there, shows a nest box towards the top of the silo, and that's a you know silos are really nice because it gets them up nice and high. The owls feel very safe inside and secure. And then the photo on the right is a look from the top of the silo looking down into the floor, and you can see the nest box being ready to be hoisted up, and attached. So I have relatively short legs comparatively to other individuals in the crowd, and so I find it fairly easy to climb these these um, these rungs by using the concrete frame and the hinge. And it's a fairly easy task. If I didn't use the hinge on the side, it'd be a little bit of a stretch for me. So, but otherwise, yeah, it's here I'm 62 years old and I can still climb these silos. So,
So this is definitely a different type of monitoring. A lot of you have indicated on your volunteer survey that you'd be willing to do this. And don't worry, if you have or if you haven't, there's no commitment involved. We're going to get you out in the field. Uh, Either way, probably most likely to check one of these boxes with somebody who has done this before, and they'll help give you a taste of exactly what this climbing experience is like. Because the photos and the video that I attached to that volunteer survey, they do not quite do it the justice.
that, that's a good point, Alex, that you make. Thank you. And I know we've got a huge list of volunteers, lots of folks who want to help, and and I doubt that under any circumstances that I can foresee that we're going to send a volunteer out to do any of this work by themselves.
Yeah.
We have enough people who are interested in helping that teams can go out together and work together on this monitoring. So
So we're going to work together as a team. You'll get a taste of maybe some of the more scary experiences like climbing a silo before. You won't just be thrown out into the field and asked to do anything. You won't ever be asked to do anything that you're not comfortable with, of course. But how is this monitoring data all put together? And that's where Nest Watch comes in. So, Nest Watch is it's by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So for those of you who use eBird, it will be very easy to get the hang of. In fact, it is even easier. Super duper user-friendly layout right here. And essentially, you will fill out this little survey. Uh, they will ask you certain questions about your visit to the nest site and what you saw, and you will select the options that represent what you saw. And I will give you a taste of that right now, but we're just gonna need a second because my phone's being slow. Now, Andy, I can only hear you. Can you see my phone right here?
I can, yes.
You can. Wonderful. So you'll see Nest Watch looks like this with the little four eggs right above eBird on the bottom right-hand side of my screen there. So if we click on it, it will load in. Everybody will load into this Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership Farmland Raptor Program account. See up there, MBCP FRP right at the top there.
Okay, Alex, that's probably not where we are. Um, what I'm seeing is a screen with two phones side by side. One says my stats and the other says how Nest Watch works.
Let's see. Can you see a map of nest sites now? Well, a map of where I am, but
Nope.
no.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Let's try this one more time. This worked. I'm in practice. 1 second. Alrighty. How is that now? Can you
Nope.
see a map?
No.
Strange. Okay. We're gonna do it like this then. This is gonna be fun. So, when you open NestWatch, it's right there on my screen. It's not important yet, but you will all log into this Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership Farmland Raptor Program account. And this is a good stopping point because we need to talk about what what it means that we all are sharing the same account. This means that as a volunteer of the Farmland Raptor Program, if you are monitoring nest sites, that you then have access to all of the nesting information for barn owls and kestrels in the state. And Andy, we didn't plan this, but would you like to kind of talk about the complications that can
Yes.
arise from that?
Absolutely. Yep. Happy to. So, it, not so much with kestrels as it is pretty much with barn owls is that these are very sensitive species and can easily be discouraged or caused to abandon a location if there's too much human activity going around, particularly in the egg, incubation period. So we our goal is to limit human disturbance to as much as we possibly can. In my experience, in Calvert County, working with volunteers and barn owls, is some of the most well-meaning people unfortunately can do some of the worst damage. We've had in situations volunteers who shared information about shared pictures of these cute little babies to their friends, and their friends then put it on social media and sent it out to everybody around. There was one particular location where a barn owl was roosting in the winter months, that we had a nest box placed on the barn, and hadn't been seen hadn't been seen in this area for decades. And somehow the information got out, probably by the land manager of the property, and was on Facebook, and the photographers found out about it. This is a piece of property that was private land and was gated. Yet photographers trespassed on the property and entered the barn, routinely to take photographs of this owl in the barn. And sure enough, they ended up running it off, and it never returned. So we have to try to make a concerted effort to hide these locations from the general public. Alex has done a great deal of work with Cornell and Nest Watch to make sure that these locations of these nests are not not available to the public. So we want to be sure that we keep them sensitive to ourselves as well. So sharing locations is something that we ask that you please do not do. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's very critical. We'll go over it in the field as well, but we like to
yeah,
ask people to turn the location off any photos they take at any banding events or anything like that. Not only, can you ruin relationships for the Farmland Raptor program, in terms of property owners hosting nest boxes, but you're also almost always trespassing, unless you're accessing one of these nest boxes with permission. Um,
and owls. Yeah, I guess birding has become very popular
yep.
over the last decade or so, and in that, owls are probably the top of the list as one of some of the most popular birds. I oftentimes try to blame Harry Potter for that, but it's a I don't know exactly why owls are so popular with photographers, and it's barn owls in particular because they are so strictly nocturnal. They're not seen during the day like a barred owl or a great horned owl are. So they seem to be under even more pressure than other species of owls.
Yep. Yeah. So it's absolutely critical that you keep, you know, you check your nest sites, but do not use the information to go and photograph barn owls or nesting kestrels, or distribute information to others who might want to do that. Very crucial. And I'm going to try to share my screen one last time. Let's see. Can you see my phone, Andy?
No.
Okay, we're not going to share my screen then. So the nest check, you'll have to believe me now when I tell you that checking a nest box with NestWatch is incredibly easy. Um, when you start a nest check, the nest sites will be filtered by the one closest to you. So the nest site at the very top will, in theory, be the one that you're standing under or near. And then when you select that nest site, just to give you a quick idea, it will ask you these certain questions. So if you can see, that says eggs, and then it has all these little options for 0 eggs, 1 egg, 2 eggs, 3 eggs, etc. And the survey goes on like this: how many live young, how many dead young, and then it asks a few more questions. But this will all be detailed in a video that will be on the YouTube, available very shortly. So I'm sorry that the screen share didn't work today. I plan to walk you all through one, but that information will absolutely be available. Um,
And zero is data as well.
yep,
Oftentimes as important as other.
yeah. And something that's really neat about NestWatch, it's actually a good point, building off what Andy said. Zero is data. It's also important for us to know if kestrels or barn owls are not the ones nesting in these boxes where we are targeting kestrels and barn owls. So with NestWatch, all of the nest sites are grouped as either a kestrel box or a barn owl box. And then no matter, you can put whatever species you want in that box. So if you see a starling nesting in the box, please put in that information. And this brings us to a good point, starling management. So this video is refusing to work all day today, but essentially the Farmland Raptor program takes the stance that we do not have any strict starling management guidelines. It has been brought to our attention by many other organizations doing similar nest box programs that you can fight and fight and fight these starlings, but they will keep coming back and they're abundant. And if a kestrel really wants to kick them out, they will. Now, that being said, if you are interested in managing starlings in some way, shape, or form, we are happy to talk with you about what we have learned and as what is effective and what is not. But it is not a priority of ours to manage these starlings. So,
And one thing is that we've chosen nest box placement, um, in as a tool to try to be less attractive to starling usage, and we try to use wash pea gravel as a substrate, which has also been shown to be not very attractive to starlings. Starlings will make an effort to try to remove every single pebble out of that box before
Mhm.
they actually nest in it. So you can imagine an inch and a half of gravel in the bottom. That's going to take them a long time to get all that gravel out of there.
Oh yeah, and they just quit.
Yeah.
That's what has been found. Um, but again, starling management is optional, but not a priority of the program. Um, all in all here, right? We're going back to Smokey the Bear. It really is only you. It only is the volunteers. This program is essentially 99% volunteers. We couldn't do it without you. There's so many different ways to get involved in monitoring, but monitoring is what we are here to talk about today. And you will be supported as a box monitor through your regional box manager, kind of that team lead. You'll be on a team. It'll be a lot of fun to get out in the field this nesting season, see some breeding kestrels and breeding barn owls. The babies, the chicks are as cute as can be. We'll be doing these banding events. It's a very unique experience that you'll gain from that. And to get you there in terms of monitoring, there will be a volunteer resources folder available on the Google Drive. And there is the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership's YouTube channel with a playlist of videos that are all time-stamped, very easy to navigate if you have specific questions or anything like that. So the resources are there, and the app, which I didn't get to show you, is a very, very easy way to collect that information. Just as soon as you do a nest check, it'll essentially take 2 minutes to fill out that little survey, and then you're done. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And you can upload the photos directly from that camera to the NestWatch app for Andy and I and other regional box managers to take a look at. But, you know, I didn't come to this work. Just by happen chance, really. It I came to this as a birder, and birding is what first got me interested in doing all of this. And I like to end, any little talk or anything like that with a quote that really speaks to me, because it is true after all. Birding is just a game, and going beyond that is what is important. So there's contact information for the email, website, which you all should have, and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you guys so much.
One last thing that I'd like to add, Alex, is that I do want to, introduce and acknowledge some of our regional box managers that are already established.
Yeah.
Margaret Pothig for the Lower Eastern Shore, um, Jason and Michelle Houston for Washington County, Sam Ziegler, Anir Bott, and Tom Versicelli for Frederick County. And then Karen Anderson and Calvert County Natural Resources Division for Calvert County. Did I miss anyone?
We're going to be working with Christy to help out with some
Christy,
Baltimore
yes.
boxes.
Hmm.
And then as we work our way into Carroll and Howard County as well and expand those efforts, we'll also be looking for folks to coordinate, those boxes or subsets of those boxes.
Great.
So I'm gonna take my screen off here. Yeah, thank you for doing that thing that I said that I would do, Andy, and
Yeah, no worries.
introduce the regional box managers there.
So I
Uh,
guess from the question standpoint, Jordan's going to moderate and ask our questions for us, and we'll try to answer those collectively.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. And thanks everyone for joining us. You've been really engaged in the chat, so we'll try to get to as many of these questions as possible. Um, First off, Sonal Shah, apologies if I mispronounced your name, asked if there's a good time of day to visit nest boxes and photograph. for each?
Great. That's a terrific question, Sanal. We kestrels maybe not so much as barn owls. We try to recommend that if you're checking a barn owl box, please try to do so later in the day. It, obviously that it's going to be based around your own schedule. But barn owls, if flushed from their roost sites, oftentimes can be preyed upon by other raptors, mostly red-tailed hawks. And they a barn owl escaping, find out of the barn or out of the silo or out of the nest box looking for a place to hide, flying across the field, is that there's red tails pick them up just like that and will poof, go right to them. So, when you're checking your nest boxes, it's always a good idea as well to keep an eye out of your surroundings to see if there are red tails around before you run the risk of flushing an adult from the silo, barn, or nest box. They'll go and they'll try to find shelter in a dense evergreen, red cedar or something of that nature. So that's later in the day. We're hoping that red-tailed hawks are satiated from their daily feeding and wouldn't necessarily be that apt to chase one. So.
Anything else, Alex?
No, yeah, that sums it up right there.
Next, we have Karen, who is asking how and when can we expect to be assigned to boxes and regional managers?
So the regional box managers have just started reaching out. So if you haven't gotten an email, you will soon to coordinate with you and which boxes you will be checking. So that's coming, within a week, I'd say, that we're going to start make sure that everyone's divided up and knows who they're working with and where they're working.
Awesome. Rachel wants to confirm if a Nest Watch survey at the first box check should be submitted, even if there's no activity present.
Yeah, would have been great if I could have screen shared my phone there, but at it you will find that it will make sense to you what to do, I think, if you open the app. But just to walk everybody through it for a second here, the first question you're going to get asked is the date. And the second question is what species is in the box. If there's no species in the box, then you don't put a species. And that also means that there's 0 eggs, 0 live young, 0 dead young, and you can just go ahead and submit that. You checked the box. It will note that you checked the box, but there will be no species or eggs or anything associated with it, obviously. So that's a very good question. Yeah.
On a related note, Robert wants to know if the boxes should be monitored until all eggs are hatched or just until the first one.
That's an excellent question. Yeah, just until the first one is hatched. That's more appropriate for barn owls because of their asynchronous incubation period. So barn owls are good. The first egg lay is going to hatch, as much as a week prior to the last egg laid. So it's that first egg that is important to us in determining the banding date for the chicks. Kestrels tend to be all within you tend to all hatch within a day of each other, so they'll be relatively the same age. But yeah, that's the first egg laid or the first egg hatched is what we're looking for.
And I think some people just can't get enough eggs. And so Mary wants to know if all of the nest boxes are already installed for this upcoming season.
Yes. Yes, they are. So our installation period lasts year round, but our targeted efforts are primarily during kind of the late fall, winter months. And birds are already prospecting. There's in fact already eggs in a barn owl box. So they're getting their move on, and all our boxes that are going to be up for the season are up.
That's not to say that we may put some up April, May, or even
Oh,
even during the summer. But they obviously would not be needed to be monitored because they're out of the window. They would be monitored, included in the next year's nesting season.
Trisha also had asked about installing new nest boxes. So, Alex and Andy, do you have any tips on if people are interested or want to plan for the fall slash next winter? Anything else about thinking ahead for more nest boxes?
I think that's an excellent question because that's one of the things that on the survey asked, in what capacity are you interested in volunteering, and one of those is identifying suitable locations and helping to evaluate those locations. So throughout the year, that's relatively a year-round task. Any volunteers are more than welcome to to identify potential new nest box locations and send them to the regional nest box manager, who then will evaluate them with in coordination with Alex and I to see if they meet the various criteria. So yeah, that's would be a terrific help.
Um, we have a few folks that will follow up with personally, just confirming which area they wanted to work. So Alex and Andy will do that later. And then Kurt asked a little bit more about the app. He asked that he's downloaded the app and he's ready to use it, but how do you link to your project, or does that happen automatically when you log in?
yeah. So this is a great question, and I'm glad that you asked it. Just to further clarify here, I would love if we could all have separate accounts and link them to the project. So similar, if any of you contributed to the Breeding Bird Atlas, right? You go in through your own eBird account, you select that you wanted to work on the Maryland Breeding Bird Atlas project, gives you a little option on the screen, and then you just go about your business the same way that you normally use eBird. With NestWatch, they do not have the capability to have multiple accounts contribute to essentially like a shared repository, which is MBCP Farmland Raptor Program. So we will all need to log in with the same login information. And this has worked for programs, especially in Virginia. They utilize NestWatch in the same way that we are going to. Um, it really is the best option out there, and hopefully in the future they will build it so that we can each have our own accounts all contributing to one central database. But for now, everybody will have the same login information.
And we would really ask that you please not share that login information with folks who are not part of the program.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And so no, don't delete it. You can just keep the app, Kurt. I see your comment down there, but we will distribute login information shortly, and that'll be available for you guys.
Next up, Margaret is asking about how to attract and lure barn owls to actually breed. She just learned about some barn owls in a barn, and the owners would like to have them nest there. So, do you have any suggestions on where to put a box for the pair of barn owls there?
Well, that's interesting. So if the owls are actually using the barn to roost, they could very well be nesting there already. Up on a platform somewhere up high in the barn. Um, in that scenario, what we would do is we would construct a nest box and place it inside the barn, where the owls can get to it while they're in there. We work with the landowners, closely, and some landowners prefer not to have the owls in the barn because they can be a bit messy with droppings and pellets and so forth. So there are ways of mounting a nest box in a barn that where they enter through the side of the barn. They cut an opening in the siding and they enter into the box, directly into the box. Other landowners really don't have much of a feeling about them being messy in the barn. So we could definitely mount a nest box in the barn, and they will find it because they're already using the barn to roost already. So yeah, that's we've set up a decision tree in terms of how to select locations, and the top priority, the number one priority there is presence of owls. So whenever somebody says to us, "Well, we've got owls in a barn, or we have owls roosting in our silo," that location automatically jumps to the top of the list. That's priority number one. So this is something that we would be very excited about. Installing a nest box in this at this location that the owls are. So we'd like to get some more information from you on that.
Speaking of barn owners and landowners, Craig is asking if all of the nest boxes are located on private property or if some are located on public lands like regional or state parks.
Yeah, so that's it if barn owl and kestrel are a little bit different in that respect. Kestrel's requirements for are a little bit less precise than barn owls are. The majority, I would say, the majority are on private land. We have found that pasture land is a is an important habitat for these birds, both kestrel and barn owl. They support their food, and so some state and local public lands are managed for wildlife, are managed for grassland species, but they tend to be, a lot of them tend to be uh, geared towards agricultural use. The state natural resources management areas oftentimes have farm leases on them, and they're not 100% managed towards grassland birds, or grassland wildlife. So from that standpoint, the majority tend to be on private property, but we do have some on public lands as well. So
That does it for all of the questions in the chat, but obviously there's a couple more minutes if anyone else wants to chime in. But thank you so much, Alex and Andy, for all of the information.
Yeah, no, thank you to everyone for coming. And yeah, we're really excited to meet anyone we haven't met, get out in the field with everybody, and this should be a good nesting season, I think. So
yeah, one of the things that we want to, our kind of our next step is the regional box managers will be setting up monitoring schedules, and so they'll be getting you they'll be contacting you and getting you scheduled for nest box checks. Alex and I are going to make every attempt we possibly can to attend some of those first nest box checks, so that you'll have an opportunity to actually be in the field and see how it's done, without being kind of thrown into it blindly. So
absolutely. Yeah, feel free to contact us if you have any questions about this, and please do, actually. But
yeah.
yeah.
There's lots of thank you. Again, Alex and Andy, you gave great information. We do have two more questions that just came in. Kate wants to know if the birds are protected once they find a place similar to bats, especially if they're on public land. I don't know if you want to speak to that. I know there's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these birds are protected already by the migratory bird treaty, and raptors in particular are protected, and so they, disturbance, harassment, disturbance, take of nests and eggs is all illegal. So yeah, they're already protected. There's no additional protection, that they get after they've started nesting, but yeah, they are.
Mhm.
And speaking of landowners, on a related note, Courtney is asking about liability of landowners. I don't know if there's more specificity, Courtney, but I wonder if that could just be about hosting the birds or the boxes.
Yeah. I'm assuming the boxes and just kind of allowing volunteers to monitor those boxes. And we do have a landowner agreement written up. And there's a lawyer that works with MBCP. So yeah, I'm happy to talk more about
Yeah,
that with you, Courtney.
it's a hold harmless agreement that the landowners are signing.
That should do it then, Alex and Andy. Thank you so much again.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Look forward to seeing you in the field.